Join our community by subscribing. Every click helps us share more stories like this one. The introduction. In the heart of Oak Ridge, an unassuming town nestled among the rolling hills of Tennessee, the hum of daily life buzzed with a familiarity often taken for granted. Children rode their bicycles down tree-lined streets, while neighbors exchanged polite waves from porches adorned with hanging ferns. But beneath this veneer of tranquility lay a darkness that would soon embroil the community in a harrowing saga. On the chilly morning of November 12th, 2016, the police received a frantic call from a local resident, Sarah Mitchell. She had recently stepped out to grab her mail when she discovered her neighbor, 32-year-old Emily Davis, lying motionless in her front yard. Panic bubbled over in her voice as she detailed the scene to the dispatcher. Emily's blonde hair spread chaotically around her, and her body lay unnaturally still amid the freshly fallen leaves. Detectives arrived shortly after, their breath visible in the frosty air, only to quickly confirm what Sarah had feared. Emily was dead. The presence of a dark bruise encircling her throat suggested foul play, casting an ominous shadow over the neighborhood. Immediately, speculation ignited. Emily, a college graduate known for her kindness and dedication to the local wildlife rescue, had no known enemies. Yet here she was, a victim of a crime that slid into the heart of the community like the winter chill that slowly engulfed the town. As investigators began their meticulous work, the air was thick with disbelief. In a place where everyone knew everyone, the unsettling realization set in the monster among them had struck, and no one was safe. Little did they know, this was only the beginning of a twisted journey that would lead them deep into the layers of trust, betrayal, and unanswered question. The victim. Emily Davis was a warm light in Oak Ridge, a small town that seemed to thrive on shared histories and neighborly bonds. Born and raised in the very suburbs she now called home, she was a product of the community, a spirited girl with dreams bigger than her front yard. After graduating from the University of Tennessee with a degree in environmental science, Emily had returned to Oak Ridge with a mission: to give back to the land she loved so dearly. To the people around her, Emily was the very definition of kindness. Her weekends were often spent volunteering at the local animal shelter, ensuring that every stray cat found refuge and every dog met with affection. Friends described her as fiercely loyal and empathetic, characteristics that drew others to her. She had dreams of starting a wildlife rehabilitation center, and her dedication was palpable, infectious. She instinctively fought for the voiceless and directed her unwavering passion into every cause she touched. Yet, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Emily was also a woman grappling with private battles. The pressures of adulthood weighed heavily on her, compounded by the disintegration of her long-term relationship with her college sweetheart. Friends recalled moments of vulnerability at night, confessions about anxiety, feelings of inadequacy, and a gnawing sense of loneliness that crept in during quiet moments. Her last Instagram post, taken just days prior, displayed a vibrant sunset over the lake, accompanied by the caption, "Chasing sunsets, finding peace." It encapsulated a fleeting joy that masked the turmoil beneath. So much potential, so much life left to live. In a world that turned each day with an indifferent cadence, Emily's life was snuffed out in an instant, leaving behind a cacophony of questions. Who could want to harm a soul so dedicated to nurturing life? Oak Ridge was left to grapple with an unbearable loss, an artist robbed of her canvas, a friend ripped from the fabric of everyday laughter, and a community searching for clarity in a whirlpool of despair. The crime scene. As detectives surrounded the small white bungalow on Maple Street, the mood was grim and methodical. Yellow police tape fluttered in the cold breeze, cordoning off the area as officers began to secure and document the crime scene. The neighborhood, once vibrant and full of laughter, now felt eerily silent. Children stayed away, and adults peered out from behind closed curtains, whispering questions, but keeping their fears to themselves. Emily's body lay on the lawn, a tragic testament to her untimely end. As the lead investigator, Detective Mark Thompson, squatted near the scene, he took in every detail, his instincts honed from years on the force. The morning fog still lingered in the air, mingling with the acrid scent of deteriorating leaves beneath a sky that gradually brightened, betraying the darkness that had unfolded below. A cursory examination of the victim revealed signs of a struggle. The grass around her was flattened in disarray. Not far from her body were scattered remnants of her personal belongings: her purse, a silver locket, and one shoe, eerily half buried in the leaves. Thompson's heart sank as he examined the dark bruise encircling Emily's neck, the telltale signs of strangulation pointing to a calculated and violent act. Nearby, forensic teams combed the scene, photographing every inch and documenting potential evidence. They noted the absence of footprints leading away from the scene, heightened by the crisp autumn leaves still undisturbed. It was as if the perpetrator had vanished into thin air. As Thompson stood, exchanging looks with his fellow officers, a chill crept up his spine. Whoever committed this act had not just taken a life, they had wrenched apart the fabric of their community. The bustle of the investigation drew onlookers, each person struggling to comprehend how swiftly their idyllic town was transformed into the backdrop of a night. Speculations swirled, but for Detective Thompson, the focus remained: to uncover the truth lying beneath the grief, the screams muffled by the walls of their homes, and the unsuspecting souls who wandered too close to a terrible secret. The early investigation. In the days following Emily Davis's tragic death, Oak Ridge became a hive of inquiry. Detective Mark Thompson led a team of investigators as they meticulously gathered evidence, interviewed distraught neighbors, and reconstructed the last days of Emily's life. But with each passing hour, frustration festered. It was a race against time to unearth leads before they slipped through their fingers. The first logical step had been to canvass the neighborhood for witnesses. They knocked on doors, spoke to anyone who might have seen or heard something, poring over every fragment of information. Most locals had heard the commotion the night before. There had been a party 2 houses down, and several neighbors described muffled voices and laughter drifting through the chilly air. But it was during the late hours that things turned murky. One resident claimed to have heard a woman scream, followed by a car speeding away, a detail that sparked immediate intrigue, but offered little clarity in terms of identities. In an effort to piece together Emily's last interactions, Thompson delved into her social life. Digs into her social media profiles and phone records revealed a mix of friends, a few acquaintances, and an unsettling number of recent messages from an unknown number that had gone unanswered. Were these simply spam, or did they hold deeper significance? As Thompson analyzed her messages, he noted the emotional weight in her correspondence, with a few close friends' conversations that hinted at pressure and a need for emotional support in light of her recent breakup. Surveillance footage from nearby homes and businesses became a lifeline for the investigation. The grainy videos, though sometimes jittery, showed several cars passing by around the time of her death. As detectives scanned frame by frame, they found a silver sedan that stood out against the darker evening hues. Despite its fleeting appearance on screen, the image floated on the edges of Thompson's mind. Weeks passed, and the quiet tedium of daily routine started to encroach upon the case. Yet, with each step forward, hope intermingled with despair. With every buried truth waiting to be unearthed, the investigation transformed from merely seeking justice for Emily into a quest for closure for a community grappling with vulnerability. In the shadows of grief, Thompson knew they were edging closer to identifying the person behind that silver sedan, unaware that each uncovering would soon draw them deeper into a web of deception that bound the town together more tightly than anyone ever imagined. The dead ends. As the weeks bled into one another, the initial fervor of the investigation gave way to a frustrating oscillation between hope and despair. Detective Mark Thompson and his team had compiled an exhaustive list of leads, but each thread pulled resulted in nothing more than knots of confusion. Tensions escalated within the team, a palpable frustration settling in as they navigated through the cacophony of false leads and misdirections. The lead on the silver sedan, once seeming so promising, turned to ash. After tracing the vehicle's plate number provided by the surveillance video, the officers discovered it had been registered to a rental agency. The rental car had been returned just hours after Emily's death, lacking any trace of the identification of the driver. It felt like a cruel joke, reinforcing the notion that their suspect was adept at evading capture. Simultaneously, forensic analysis proved a dead end as well. DNA samples taken from Emily's finger sightings of her struggles yielded no matches in the national database. The absence of definitive clues felt like an oppressive weight on Thompson's chest. Though the police conducted background checks on known offenders within the area, nothing materialized. It was as though the murderer had slipped through the cracks of their investigation, continuing to stalk the shadows of their quiet town. Compounding their troubles, the media frenzy intensified. The story of Emily's murderance, a local tragedy, became a headline anchor for news stations across the state. Rumors circulated, each more sensational than the last, further straining relationships and dividing a community grappling with law. People began to voice suspicions about one another. Neighbors turned distant, and a curtain of mistrust draped heavily over Oak Ridge. As Thompson stared at the sprawling whiteboard in the precinct, filled with photographs of Emily notes and connections leading nowhere, he found himself grappling with a pressing question. Were they missing something not in the evidence, but possibly in those closest to Emily? As hope dimmed with dead ends, the investigation stood at a Precipician opportunity to reconsider the familiar faces that surrounded the beloved victim. Time slipped away, but somewhere amidst the chaos, they had to find a way to illuminate the darkness shrouding Emily's last moment. A break in the case. On a cold morning in late December, a glimmer of hope broke through the clouds of despair hovering over the investigation into Emily Davis's murder. It came in the form of an unexpected phone call, a tip from an anonymous source that sent Detective Mark Thompson's heart racing. The voice on the line, shaky yet insistent, claimed to have crucial information about Emily's final days. After a brief exchange, Thompson arranged for the tipster to meet him at a local coffee shop kind of establishment where the scent of fresh brew mingled with the warmth of friendly chat. A quiet booth in the back, cloaked in shadows, became the setting for this clandestine meeting. As Thompson sipped his black coffee, anticipation mingled with anxiety. The weight of the case had pressed down on him for too long. Moments later, the tipster entered, a young woman dressed in a hoodie, eyes darting around the room as if to ensure she wasn't being followed. Thompson gestured to the seat opposite him, and after a moment's hesitation, she slid into the booth. Emily's friend, she introduced herself as Nicole, seemed fragile, as if merely discussing Emily's memory carried the risk of breaking her altogether. With a hesitant breath, Nicole recounted the last time she saw Emily, just days before the murder. They had been out for drinks. Emily was vibrant and full of laughter. But she had also shared a secret that rattled Nicole to her core. Emily had mentioned receiving text messages from someone she had recently dated, a man named Caleb, whose intensity had made her uncomfortable. She'd ended things with him, but fear of retaliation lingered in her tone. Nicole believed Caleb had been stalking her, sending messages late into the night, and Emily had asked her for advice on how to handle it. With each word, the pieces of the puzzle began to click into place in Thompson's mind. He scribbled down Caleb's last name, a determination hardening in his gut. As Nicole spoke, it became clear that the darkness surrounding Emily was closer than anyone had imagined. The tipster's voice wavered as she revealed that she overheard a late-night argument between Emily and a male voice outside her home, just a few nights before the murder. The meeting concluded, leaving Thompson with a renewed sense of purpose. With Nicole's revelations, they had a name, a potential motive, and a connection to Emily's haunting final days. As he left the dimly lit coffee shop, bracing against the December chill, a surge of resolve propelled him forward. They were finally on the verge of breaking through the fog that had clouded this case for too long. And for Emily, he was determined to unearth the truth that lay buried beneath layers of betrayal and fear. The suspect. As the first glimmers of dawn broke over Oak Ridge, Detective Mark Thompson was already poring through the details of their newfound suspect. Caleb Thompson. The name echoed with haunting familiarity, a reminder that danger can often lurk within the radius of familiarity. While the young man shared a name with the detective, he bore none of the integrity associated with the badge. A quick background check revealed a disturbing history. Caleb had a penchant for erratic behavior, with past incidents including harassment and threats against a former partner. He had been on law enforcement's radar, but his charm often allowed him to slip through the cracks. Now, as Thompson delved into Caleb's social media, a jarring pattern emerged: a collection of posts laden with possessive undertones toward women, and in particular about Emily. The last post, made just days before her death, contained a chilling message. You don't know what you're walking away from. Armed with this information, Thompson's team focused their efforts on locating Caleb. A canvass of the area led the detectives to a rundown apartment complex on the outskirts of town, a place that echoed neglect and disillusionment. As they approached, they noted the dim lighting, peeling paint, and lack of warmth that portrayed the isolation Caleb likely felt in his own life. Outside the building, the detectives interviewed residents, revealing mixed feelings about Caleb. While some recalled his charm and quick wit, others had sensed a darkness beneath the surface-like changes in demeanor that left them unsettled when he was around. They learned of his frequent heated gambits with Emily after their breakup, suggesting a volatile relationship steeped in obsession rather than love. When they finally caught up with Caleb, He was seated on the steps outside his apartment, his demeanor casual, as if the weight of responsibility and suspicion had not yet draped itself around his shoulders. Thompson approached cautiously, introducing himself while scanning Caleb's reactiveness. A sense of unease distracted him. Eyes darting back and forth, Caleb's nervous energy seemed in constant survival mode. Island Lord Dot. During the questioning, Caleb feigned ignorance about Emily's death, but couldn't hide the subtle defenses that flared with each inquiry. When Thompson pressed about the arguments described by Nicole, the corners of Caleb's mouth twitched a hint of emotion that betrayed him. There was something primal thrumming just beneath his skin, and it filled the air between them with tension. As the conversation progressed, Thompson caught a glimpse of Caleb's facade cracking. It was subtly a shift of gaze, clenched fists, but it was enough to ignite Thompson's resolve. Behind the bravado lurked a man aware of the danger he presented, a monster masquerading under a charming exterior. With the suspicions now crystallized, Thompson knew they would need irrefutable evidence to connect Caleb to the crime. But the pieces were beginning to align. The hunt was now focused. The predator was in their sights, and it was time to activate the machinery of justice for Emily, who deserved nothing less. The trial, the air in the Oak Ridge courthouse was thick with an electric tension, a blend of anticipation and sorrow. The trial of Caleb Thompson had become a focal point for the entire community, an event that drew friends, family, and curious onlookers into the confines of the courtroom. The oppressive weight of Emily's death lingered in every corner, infusing the atmosphere with an underlying grief that would not relent. Thompson, the lead detective, seated quietly at the back, found himself observing. Here, he watched justice unfold, and yet the memory of Emily's laughter echoed painfully in his mind. The family had adorned the courtroom with photographs of her vibrant life yet cherished daughter. A beloved friend won a stark reminder of what had been extinguished too soon. As the proceedings commenced, the lead prosecutor laid out the case against Caleb, methodically presenting evidence that stitched together the moments leading to Emily's demise. The timeline, shrouded in intensity, showcased the tumultuous relationship between Caleb and Emily, text messages that oozed possessiveness, witness accounts of arguments, and ultimately, the damning testimony from Nicole that revealed the heated confrontation close to Emily's home. Caleb's defense team countered aggressively, attempting to paint him as a victim of circumstance. As flawed as he might be, they argued that he had no physical evidence tying him to the crime, and that the circumstantial evidence presented was merely speculative. Laughter and reassurance from his supporters seemed unfittingly loud against a backdrop of sadness, igniting the discomfort among Emily's supporters present in the gallery. As each day of testimony unfolded, the emotional currents rippled through the courtroom, leaving palpable shifts. Emily's family bravely took the stand, recounting the joy she had brought into their lives and the utter heartbreak of losing. Their words, gut-wrenching and raw, wove a tapestry of the love that defined her existence, an existence now unfairly truncated by violence. After several weeks of testimony and the slow unfolding of judicial process, the prosecution rested its case. Detective Thompson felt a tightness in his chest as closing arguments were presented. The defense maintained that while Caleb exhibited troubling behavior, it did not correlate to guilt, asserting the prosecution had failed to connect the dots definitively. As the jury filed out for deliberation, a heavy silence enveloped the courtroom, filled only by the muffled sounds of suppressed sobs and distant footsteps. Time crawled as everyone waited, a collective hope pitted against the uncertainty of the system. When the jury finally returned, the four-person's voice trembled. It delivered their verdict. Guilty of second-degree murder. A wave of relief surged through Emily's family, tears streaming freely down their faces as the gravity of justice rendered itself in the room. Thompson silently exhaled, feeling a spark of closure igniting amidst the mourning. As Caleb was led away in handcuffs, he wore an expression of disbelief, perhaps grappling with the harsh truth that his actions could no longer evade the consequences. The trial had only been a chapter in a larger narrative chapter, where a community had gathered to honor a life lost. For Thompson and the townspeople of Oak Ridge, the fight for justice had been long and wrought with hurdles. But they had emerged stronger, united against the darkness that lurked among them. Emily would not be forgotten. The aftermath. In the months following Caleb Thompson's conviction, the echoes of Emily Davis's life and death lingered in the air of Oak Ridge, a town forever altered by the tragic events that had unfolded. The cold winter gave way to the soft blooms of spring, yet the revival of nature felt juxtaposed against the grief that settled like a heavy fog over the community. In her honor, Emily's family established a foundation, aiming to promote awareness about domestic violence and mental health issues, once cast aside as taboo, but now brought to light by her untimely passing. Local schools and community centers began hosting workshops, encouraging dialogues that had previously gone unspoken. Each session drew in neighbors, friends, and even those who had only heard Emily's name whispered in sorrow. For them, it was a chance to connect, share stories, and ensure that her voice resonated beyond the grave. Detective Mark Thompson, who had witnessed the harrowing journey from the shadows of investigation to the bright promise of justice, became involved in the Foundation's efforts. As he attended workshops, he spoke candidly about the toll of violence and its pervasive influence. Each story he heard was a reminder of the darkness lurking just beneath the surface, and he was determined to keep Emily's spirit alive by empowering others to break their silence. Yet, healing was not linear. As the days passed, the town faced the duel of moving forward while coping with the haunting memories that had etched themselves into the fabric of their lives. Local gatherings that had once been filled with laughter now carried an undercurrent of solemnity. As friends and family celebrated milestones, birthdays, anniversaries, the invisible weight of absence hung like an uninvited guest. People began to check in on one another more frequently, raising awareness of mental health as they navigated their grief collectively. At the first anniversary of Emily's death, a candlelight vigil illuminated the town square, drawing hundreds from all walks of life. They gathered under starlit skies, sharing stories of Emily's kindness, her sense of adventure, and the dreams she had championed. Lanterns floated gently above, casting warm glows across the faces of those who remained, each flame a tribute to a life touched by her light. In this shared space of remembrance, hopes were rekindled not just for healing, but for prevention. The town of Oak Ridge became an unlikely beacon, illuminating the necessity for vigilance and compassion against the silence that often allowed violence to thrive. Through their collective grief, they forged connections and cultivated a newfound resilience, ensuring that Emily's story would empower others, protecting future generations from the shadows that had taken so much too soon. As Thompson looked around the vigil, he realized that while Emily was no longer with them, her spirit lingered anchored in the hearts of those who had loved her, in the laughter of children being taught to voice their truths, and in the growing movement toward change that she had sparked. Oak Ridge might carry the scars of loss, but they had also learned to embrace the transformative power of love, community, and remembrance. In honoring Emily's legacy, they were lighting the way for countless others, ensuring that her fight against the darkness would not be in vain. Reflection. As seasons changed once more, Oak Ridge settled into a rhythm of life tempered by loss. Detective Mark Thompson often found himself wandering through the town, past familiar spots that now bore the echoes of memory's favorite coffee shop, the lake where she once encouraged friends to appreciate sunsets, and the park where she once encouraged friends to appreciate sunset. Laughter had harmonized with nature. Each location was a reminder of the vibrant spirit that had been so suddenly extinguished. In moments of quiet reflection, Thompson grappled with the complexities of justice. While Caleb Thompson had been sentenced for his crimes, the shadows of that dark night would haunt him forever. No amount of punishment could return Emily to her family or restore the irrevocable changes that her death had wrought. Still, there was solace in knowing they were fostering awareness, igniting conversations that might prevent another heartbreak, another loss. As he resumed his work, Thompson felt a newfound urgency to advocate for those who felt unseen, who suffered in the shadows, without a voice. The lessons learned from Emily's story were woven into his approach. He aimed to connect with victims, reminding them of their worth, urging them to speak out against the silence that so often enveloped those in peril. Every now and then he would receive letters and stories from people touched by Emily's legacy, recounting how their own struggles had compelled them to find strength. He realized that grief had the power to bring about change. Had united Oak Ridge in their collective sorrow and had forged an unstoppable determination to illuminate paths to healing. In quiet moments, as he looked up at the stars twinkling above, Thompson whispered a prayer of gratitude and remembrance. Emily Davis had catalyzed a movement, and although her life was cut short, the spirit of love, courage, and empathy she exuded would persist in the hearts of many, forever guiding the fight against darkness.